let's move on now to the Denver Broncos training camp preview, where Ryan and we are going to break down the top stories to watch throughout the entirety of the preseason and training camp here for the Denver Broncos. But before we do that, if you have not already, hit the subscribe button. Also ring the bell to get notified when we create new content. Ryan and we have done a training camp preview for all 32 teams, which they should all be out by the time that you are watching this video. So be sure to go check out all those videos and also subscribe to the channel so you can see all of our prediction videos throughout the regular season. Every single week, we will be predicting every single game, including all the Broncos games. So if you want to see those videos, be sure to ring the bell and subscribe. And Ryan, let's get into it here. So before the show, we were talking about what are some of the top stories, and there was maybe a couple small ones we could focus on the defensive side of the ball. But if we're being completely honest, it's offense. It's the entirety of the offense, from Sean Payton being the new head coach, Russell Wilson, how's he going to do in year 2 at Denver? Can really only go up from here if you look at it optimistically. The receivers, how are the receivers going to do? They did draft Marvin Mims Jr., the first pick in the 2023 draft, traded up to go get him. They also added a couple of interesting players, I think, in the offseason as well to their team, particularly just Marquez Callaway, who I think had some potential in New Orleans but just couldn't really just didn't have the right quarterback system. And then lastly, for me, it's going to be the offensive line as well. They added to this offensive line, added some good offensive linemen. So it's just kind of do all these new additions around Russell Wilson. Is it going to take them to at least be competitive in the AFC and not a joke like how it was last year?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. My problem is I think that their issues last season were more than just dysfunction across the or dysfunction on the field. I think there was a lot of exposing that went on with Russell Wilson and kind of what ended up coming out about him. And so I just think that's going to be interesting to kind of monitor and see is he really as bad as some of the news that came out about him last year really was. And so for me, I think as far as that situation, if he isn't active in the locker room and he's not the leader that everyone thought he was when he was in Seattle, how does that play out? I don't think Sean Payton would really tolerate that, nor do I think that if he is there and they perform similar to what they did last year, that Russell Wilson will be there his third year.
Well, and that's the thing. He has no allegiance to Russell Wilson at all. It's like if he does not work out for his system, I'm fairly confident that all the first-round draft picks are done. I always get him and the Deshaun Watson trade confused, but I'm pretty sure they only just did the 2 draft picks. So if they suck this year, they have a top 5 pick like how they would have had this year. And it absolutely would have been or like in 2024, go get the franchise quarterback and just keep rebuilding from there. Because if we look at it, Javonte Williams unfortunately had a bad injury, but hopefully he comes back all healthy. And they do also have Samaje Perine, who I think is an underrated back. I think he can definitely fill in for what Javonte Williams won't be able to produce because of the injury, and he's still trying to get his game legs back, so to say. Offensive line, on paper, they improved with adding Ben Powers at left guard and then Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. And then all their pass catchers, even Greg Dulcich, who was rookie last year, but has a lot of potential. And then their entire receiver room has potential, So Sean Payton doesn't have any allegiance to Russell Wilson, and if he doesn't perform well, you can absolutely see him benching him halfway through the season and put in Jared Stidham. So I think when it comes to Russell Wilson, not that I feel like we could keep beating a dead horse going down his route, but I think another thing just in general though, but is the overall philosophy and leadership that Sean Payton is going to bring. There's a huge pedigree, obviously, of him and what he did in New Orleans really turned that city around. And I think that he has a real opportunity here to take the Broncos from worst to first, so to say, and especially too because his defense not horrible.
They're actually pretty good.
Yeah,
and so for me, this team severely underperformed. Like, not only were they the worst team in the league, like there were multiple people predicting them to win this division, including myself, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things I think that was most shocking about the whole entire situation, was just like how ridiculously bad they really were. And so I think Sean Payton will definitely bump up their win column by some, but I think the question is how much, because if this team has totally lost faith in Russell Wilson, then Sean Payton can probably only do so much.
Yeah. It's funny how their season was so bad last year. Now I'm like, it makes me really question like the New York Jets, and like very similar situation, like veteran QB, like trying to go chase a ring to a new team. Nathaniel Hackett's the head coach. It's just like really good defense, has some good young and up and coming receivers. It's just funny how like historically bad the team was last year. They questioned so many other things, but this year though, it's like once again on paper things should be good. They definitely seem to be improving on the offensive line and the skill position players. I think Marvin Mims Jr. That's another guy I think to watch out. Like they traded up for him for the first pick within this organization here, and so I think it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I guess kind of to wrap this all up, one of the things that I really liked that they did in the offseason was they brought in Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers, 2 Pro Bowl offensive linemen last year. Not that their offensive line was horrible last year. They just had a lot of injuries. And I definitely think bringing in these 2 guys, if that offensive line can stay healthy, are upgrades. Hopefully that will provide cleaner pockets and a better overall situation in the running game and passing game as well. So hopefully that is definitely more improved. I am curious to see. We saw this with the Bengals last year. They went out and they brought in a bunch of new offensive linemen, and it took them about 4 or 5 weeks to really get used to playing with each other. So I'm curious if they go through some growing pains like that.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think this offense should definitely be better.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be worse.
It's hard to be worse. You want to see them, the team just do better last year. Russell Wilson, I don't know, but the team just in general, at least be confident and at least be competitive.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you think the Broncos are going to do going into the 2023 season. Do you think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year and potentially compete for the division? Or are you not sold on Russell Wilson and you think the locker room has kind of lost trust in him and they'll be back where they were last year? Let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.